Hello, welcome to DIDEC, the Focus Institutions and Development Research Center, Nigeria. My name is Dr. Al-Hassan Karakara from the DIDEC. In this video, I want to shortly take you through on how to handle microeconomic data, that is survey data, using Stata. Handling microeconomic data requires a lot of things to be done. Microeconomic data sets are usually large, mainly survey data, and these data are samples of hundreds of respondents or group of respondents. It could be households, it could be firms, it could be individuals. And the distribution of such data are mostly not normal. One, because of some responses or variables being discrete. And again, handling such data poses some problems of how to actually summarize or report the important features of the data in your estimations. Thus, the main source of microeconomic data is surveys, as I have indicated, and that is the survey of individuals, group of individuals, households, firms, and perhaps a data from government entities. So the term microeconomic data usually refers to a survey data that is collected by sampling the relevant portion of the population without any attempt to control the characteristics of the sampled data. It means that whatever you sample out of a whole population without manipulating the characteristics of the sample data, at the end of the day, your estimations and your results could be generalized to the population of the study. So survey data could be cross-sectional or panel. So if you want to analyze the data with information for a group of respondents at a particular point in time, this could be performed with cross-sectional models. And that is, the data has been collected on a group of respondents at a point in time. If a data is also collected on some respondents over a period of successive intervals, that is, you collect a data for a specific year on a number of respondents. Then in 2-3 years' time, you go back and collect the same data on the same respondents. Then maybe in another 3 years after the second round, you go back to the same respondent. Then that is a microeconometric panel data. So you will need a panel form of analysis. So the kind of model or econometrics that you would employ depend on the degree to which the model itself reflects the objective of the study, the availability of data, the nature of the data you are employing, as well as the quality of the data, and the techniques that you would employ in the evaluation or estimation, as well as the most important thing, the data generating process. You should know how the data was generated. That greatly affects your analysis and your research. So the type of model you would subsequently use depends on the nature of the variables in estimation and the nature of the relationship among the variables. So you could have models that may be stochastic or already determined. Models may also be linear or nonlinear. And the variables you employ could be a continuous variable or a discrete variable. You need to explore the data to be sure on all this before you can determine which model to adopt. So some issues that you need to take into account on a survey data. First is explore the data to see whether there are missing observations of interest. That is the variables that you want to employ in your model. Go through the data to see whether there are missing observations. You could have, for instance, a variable on income. Maybe you collected data on 100 individuals, and 95% or 95 individuals out of the 100 did not respond to the variable income. It becomes a problem if you want to analyze such data. Then you also have to look out for non-response, which I've just spoke about. To essential information from respondents. Then also explore your variable to see whether they are categorical, most especially the dependent variable. If the dependent variable is categorical, the models you adopt is different from if the dependent variable is continuous variable. Thus, for this reason, many scholars find it challenging, or better say uncomfortable, dealing with survey data analysis. You may refer to one of our paper on categorical dependent variables estimations with some empirical applications. So in this instance, what you should do first when you get a survey data is to try to read about the data. When a data is published, it comes with a report. So try to get the report, read about the data. In reading about the data, read about the data collection process, including when it was collected, how the data was collected, and the data sampling method that was used, and why they use such sampling method. You could also look at the instruments that are used and how each variable is defined or measured in the data collection process. Try to also know the codes for your variables of interest. How are the variables coded? It is the code that would also tell you whether it is a discrete or continuous variable. So try to know the code. If you're able to identify the code from the report, when you get to the data, it becomes pretty easy. You only have to look for the variables with their respective codes. Then you should also try to know whether some of your variables have same or similar measurement or definition. Certain variables might have similar names or even different names, but the measurement could be the same or even different. So try to be able to identify your variables of interest and see whether you have 2 or 3 variables that have the same or similar measurement in the data set. If, for instance, you want to look out for income, then you could have income in the data, about 3 or 4 different incomes. Try to read about how they are all measured, the measurement of those incomes. If the one that you want to use, if one of it perfectly suits what you want to do, then it is that variable you should pick as part of your model in estimation. Some well-known surveys across the globe includes the demographic and health survey data, which are collected on households and individuals, often sponsored by the USAID and respective countries' statistical service offices. We also have the smallholder household survey, which is on smallholder household farmers. And it's also on households and individuals. Then the living standards, income, or expenditure survey by various countries across the globe. We have the enterprise survey, which is on a data on firms and businesses, as well as their employees. And often than not, is sponsored by the World Bank and the country, respective countries' statistical offices. We have the Living Standard Measurement Survey, the Financial Inclusion Insight Survey on households and individuals. We also have the Skills Training and Enterprise Project, the STEP data, which is collected on some countries, even across Africa. Then we have other many data that are collected by individuals or governments or entities just for their own research work. So in the next video, I will want us to have a hands-on practice on how to load a data and go through in exploring as to how to identify the estimation process. So with this, the next video is going to talk about a data analysis using the enterprise survey data, which is a firm level data. And we are going to use the enterprise survey data for 2014 for Nigeria. And I'll be happy to see you in the next video. So please look for the data on enterprise survey for Nigeria 2014. We have 2023 and 2014 is what I want us to use for a study purpose. Thank you and see you in the next video.